Luxury brands, so ardently coveted and seemingly permanent, can prove as fleeting as the wealth that purchases them. In the automotive world, names that once inspired envy now often elicit blank looks. Let's take a look back at the automotive marques that you may not know, but that, to your father, grandmother, or great-grandfather, might have symbolized success even more so than a silver walking stick and a silk top hat. Isotta Fraschini, 1900–1948. Although the Italian carmaker Isotta Fraschini, named after the combined surnames of its two founders, was established before the turn of the century, it focused mostly on the luxury market following World War I, when the Tipo 8 was introduced. The vehicle had an aluminum block straight-eight engine and was offered solely as a bare chassis. Each one had a unique body. Hollywood celebrities of the Roaring Twenties, such as Rudolph Valentino and the fictitious Norma Desmond of Sunset Boulevard, a timeless film that most people have already forgotten, were fans of the brand. Isottas transported captains of industry like William Randolph Hearst, together with royalty like the Queen of Romania and the King of Egypt. Borgward, 1924–1961. In 1924, Carl F.W. Borgward produced his first automobile, a three-wheeled scooter van, but he soon started building real cars with an eye on the luxury market. Borgward outperformed its rivals following World War II with the Hansa 1500 in 1949. It was thought to be the first entirely new car in Europe following the war, with a full-width passenger compartment and integrated front and back fenders. In 1952, Borgward made a comeback with the elegant Goliath GP 700E. It used direct injection for the first time in a production car, with a 700cc two-stroke engine. After just a single year, the Hansa 2400 was released onto the market, showcasing an optional 3-speed automatic transmission that was designed by Borgward himself and was the first of its kind in Europe. The Isabella's arrival in 1954 was the catalyst for the Borgward name's widespread recognition. The Isabella, which came in coupe, two-door sedan, cabriolet, and station wagon forms, promoted the notion that elegance and sophistication could be found in a very small package. Borgward considered engineering refinement and quality to be luxury. Cord, 1929–1932. The Auburn Automobile Company didn't have the most opulent vehicles, but Cord's two production models were incredibly ostentatious for the period, and maybe more recognizable than all of the several automakers that went out of business during the Great Depression is Auburn's Duesenberg brand. The Cord brand, named for Errit Laban Cord, the young entrepreneur who essentially saved Auburn in 1925, made its debut in 1929 with the long and low L29, the country's first front-wheel drive production car. The unique design was welcomed by coach builders, and in 1930, a particularly graceful coupe took home the Concours d'Elegance titles in Monaco and Paris. Although a respectable 5,010 were manufactured, the L29's lifespan was hampered by the Great Depression Zero.
Horch, 1899–1940. German Horch cars were as refined and innovative as the first Maybach, and they were devoid of features found in mainstream cars. German engineer August Horch founded the business after becoming dissatisfied with his job at Carl Benz. In 1899, he established his own business and went on to defeat his previous employer in a 1906 endurance competition, driving a Horch 1122 PS Tourer. Horch was removed by the board of directors in 1910, when the outcomes of other races weren't as favorable. Horch was forbidden from using his own name, so he made up Audi, which is the Latin translation of his surname and means hark or to listen. Horch won several races and, in 1933, rejoined his former business when it amalgamated with Auto Union. Imperial, 1955–1975. Chrysler first referred to its most elaborate models as Imperials in the 1920s. These were opulent, frequently custom-bodied sedans, convertibles, and limousines that were on par with anything made by Packard, Cadillac, and Lincoln. However, as those were Chrysler Imperials, which were more of a mid-range marque, their status was slightly diminished. Imperial eventually established its own brand in 1955. With the fantastic 57 models, Imperial really came into its own. Kia of Italy also started producing the ultra-luxurious Crown Imperial limousine that year, which went for an incredible $15,075, more than $127,000 in today's currency. Napier, 1900 to 1924. When Montague Napier, the founder's grandson, took over the British engineering firm D. Napier & Son in 1895, it had been in operation for 87 years. The first Napier automobile debuted alongside the new Century 5 years later. Additionally, SF Edge, Montague's Australian acquaintance, was racing a Napier before 1900 was out. It is said that the 1902 Gordon Bennett race saw the debut of British racing green livery when a Napier painted dark green triumphed. A Napier finished a 42,000-mile round of the globe in 1902 as well. When six-cylinder Napiers debuted in 1904, they posed a price and quality challenge to Rolls-Royce. American Napier started manufacturing automobiles in Boston in 1905. However, due to a series of corporate mishaps, the American division shut down in 1912. Daimler, 1896 to 2007. You're certainly familiar with several of the names from Daimler's early years, like Maybach, Benz, NSU, Armstrong, and many more. However, Gottlieb Daimler and an experimental car were all that existed in 1889. The car, called the Stahlradwagen, had a 1.5 horsepower, 0.6-liter V-twin engine and a chassis provided by NSU. Following many ventures with Wilhelm Maybach, Gottlieb licensed his engines to a British company in 1891, which went on to become the Daimler Motor Company in 1896. Gottlieb would establish his own German Daimler automobile firm. However, it would merge with Carl Benz's business and adopt the Mercedes brand. Eventually, in 1910, Birmingham Small Arms, BSA, became the parent firm of British Daimler. Continental, 1956 to 1957. Naturally, the name Continental is neither cryptic nor forgotten. Over the years, many Lincolns have been seen with that emblem, and the company plans to bring the recognizable name back for a new flagship sedan that might debut as early as mid-2016. However, only a deep knowledge of automotive history may be aware that, from 1956 to 1957, Continental also existed as a separate division. Ford created it as a spin-off to market the expensive Mark II, a replacement for the historic V12 Lincoln Continentals of the 1940s. The youngest grandchild of Henry Ford, William Clay Ford, led the division and was a driving influence behind its founding. LaSalle, 1927 to 1940. Cadillac started referring to itself as the standard of the world in 1912. It was a fitting motto given the exceptional luxury and innovation of its cars. With Cadillac pricing reaching as high as $5,000 during the Roaring '20s, the Ford Model T's peak price was less than $800. General Motors had a chance to establish a brand that would sit between Buick and Cadillac at the top of the company's hierarchy. Between 1926 and 1929, the company actually launched 4 companion brands to expand on its already extensive lineup. Oakland sold and manufactured vehicles for the emerging Pontiac brand, Cadillac became LaSalle, Oldsmobile became Viking, and Buick, temporarily, became Marquette, Stutz, 1911 to 1937. Harry Clayton Stutz began his career as a hired engineer, much like a lot of his peers in the automotive industry. In the untamed era of the early 1900s auto industry, investors were in high demand, and Stutz was more than delighted to part with their money. Stutz found enough spare time, 5 weeks, according to legend, after starting a profitable transaxle manufacturing business and taking on contract engineering work to design and construct his first automobile. which finished 12th in the 1911 Indianapolis 500. By August of that year, Stutz cars began coming off the assembly line. Stutz had financial troubles during the Great Depression despite its early success, which finally caused the company to close in 1937. Nonetheless, Stutz's reputation lives on, as their vehicles are still praised for their flawless engineering and classic style. Collectors and enthusiasts now value Stutz vehicles highly, which is a monument to the brand's significant but fleeting existence in the luxury car market. The Stutz brand is still associated with luxury and inventiveness in early American automobile design,